Welcome to Bonehead Weekly with hats. And this time we're only going to talk about our hats. We have two guests, and we got them on here just because we wanted to talk about their hat collections. We have Adrienne Elder and Brandon. What's your last name, sir?
Griffith.
Griffith. That's what it is. I couldn't remember. And they both have just a wonderful collection of hats. And so we're going to go through them and they're going to show them all to us, and that's going to be amazing. See? There, you know we do an interview show and you just put on a hat that says "Don't ask."
Mm-hmm.
Now, have any of you ever been to the Tex-Mex of Chevys? Chevys it used to be a chain, and I still keep the hat. It doesn't really exist except for a couple locations in Texas now.
Oh, no, I have not been. No.
Dead crowd, dead
That
air,
was
dead air,
fascinating,
dead
Joe.
Yeah,
air,
Tell us,
I
dead
tell
mean,
air.
us about your dead Mexican food chain.
What is that? Why do you have to say it just that way, Chad? Couldn't you have done better? All right, I'm taking the hat thing off. I thought
Because
it'd be
because
more
then you're going
fun.
to proceed to talk about their corn mush that was so fantastic, and then we'll be here for 30 minutes and not
That's
talk
not
about
true.
Scarefest.
That's not true. We can talk about it. I can be done in 5 minutes. So I do want to
Heard
welcome
that
to the
before.
show. What'd you say?
Said I've heard that before.
Well, two pump chump. I want to welcome to the show Brandon and Adrian from Scarefest. Adrian usually is here our last few years, but we've somehow got Brandon, who is a shut-in, to finally show up.
Yeah, last time we had Brandon, he was on the couch.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
drunk.
That was my first year.
Yeah,
Yeah. How many years ago was that? 30?
Jesus,
Feels like it.
it goes in dog years.
Yeah,
So
feels like dog years.
7 years. Tanya, let's see. So actual physical years, 16. So 17 was the first year that we did it. So we had 1 year off. So was it like six?
You've owned
So
it
if
for
you take
seven,
that by
though.
seven, then it's 42 years. That's how I've aged.
Yep, true story.
So
well, I just went cross-eyed, and that ain't coming out.
yeah, I the math didn't quite add up, but that's okay. Math, that's all right. So what I want to ask you to start off with, and I don't ever I get these questions all the time, and I always say, I have no input or power. But people think sometimes because I know the two of you that I have input and I don't. So I just want to say that one more time for everybody in the back of the room. I do not get to decide who's coming to the effing show. Okay.
I
So,
base this list solely off of Joe Lewis's opinions, and he's a dirty liar.
God damn it. Jerry Greer goes around telling people that, and that's not a joke because
Based on
he
this
thinks
year's
it's
list,
funny.
based on this year's list, they listen to me.
That's true. That's true. Now, before I get started, I do have a question. Out of all the things that you have both put up with over the last 7 years, out of the learning curves, and we'll get to just how much you've done for the show and just how much it's grown, and I'll kiss your ass later. But out of all, and I'm not being sarcastic, what has been the biggest, what the hell, learning thing that you've come across?
I'm gonna let Brandon start this one.
I know there's a
Jesus.
bunch, but I'm just curious, what's the oh my God, really? I got to do that, or this was awful, or something, or just something funny.
I'll tell you what. So two things come to mind real quick, and it's not like even just a learning curve, but it's when I was a fan and I'd never done any type of event promotion or nothing. The only thing I'd ever done is just gone to shows. Um, and you imagine the world of booking people and getting guests and things like that. You imagine it being a lot bigger than what it is. And so going into it, I was just it confounded me, like the idea of like someone in Lexington, Kentucky booking out, you know, A-list celebrities out of Hollywood. And it just seemed very
It
it's
might
hard
as
to
well be
explain.
on Olympus, right? It might as well be on the other
Right.
side of
I'm
the
just like,
world. Why would they
yeah,
talk to you?
yeah. I'm like, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. Where would I even have, like, how would this even work? Like, what would it look like? And it's not like that at all, in all honesty. The world is a lot smaller than what you imagine.
Hmm.
And, getting to people, that's still, the chase is part of the fun too. Like, you have to hunt people sometimes, but, a lot of the time it's just talking to connections and people that do this kind of thing for a living, as far as like booking and things, and like agents are a whole different shebang altogether. But it's not as big as you think it is, and the whole thing is really just a big high school, in all honesty. And in booking those people and working with the people that they book through, a lot of it is, I hope, I mean, it's who it's like they have cliques. There's people they get along with. There's people they don't get along with. People will book at certain shows and not other shows, and that's a big learning curve. That's probably one of the biggest. The other thing is just not knowing exactly what all goes into the back end of it, because like a lot of people, I think, have a mentality like they know how it works. Like vendors, like I always hear vendors say, well, we pay for all the travel and all of our stuff pays for all this.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be. I mean, I'm sure it's like that at other shows, but it's not the case here.
No.
And when you get into it, like the first year, I mean, I lost $40,000, and I've not kept that a secret. I've been very open about it. It took quite a while for us to figure out what we were doing,
Yeah.
and we still have to learn. Oh, I don't think she can hear you because I've got my headphones in.
I'm not talking.
Okay.
No, I said hi.
Well, she was now then.
Yeah, I said hi.
Oh, they said to me.
Yeah.
But I was actually talking to Sean Clark about this, and Sean books. Sean, we booked like Matthew Lillard and a lot of those people through. And Sean's pretty tied into it. And there's several folks that we work with that are like that. But I was actually at a show in Chicago and I was talking to him, and I was just like, look, there's no instruction manual that comes with this. Like, you learn through trial and fire. And if you mess up, like there's no way to know how it works, or how you just have to. A lot of it is instinct. A lot of it is just putting pieces together, but nobody tells you what to do and what not to do. You learn the wrong way, or you get lucky, and then you just try your best not to repeat those mistakes. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, because there's money tied into this, and everybody at the end of the day has to make money, or else fans have to have fun and people have to make money. And some of the celebrities that we work with, they depend on that to pay their mortgages. Some people may not think that, but that's the case.
That's how it goes.
Vendors, I never understood this until about year 2, that a show can make or break them financially. I went into it with the mindset of I was so naive that I thought a lot of the vendors were people that just did stuff on the weekends, and it was a hobby or something like that, because I was used to like shows like like festivals like in Kentucky that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
But no, these folks, if you have a bad year, you first, you've got a lot of fans that are not happy. 2, you've got people that depend on you for this, and if you shank it, that's their livelihood. So you can't take it lightly. You can't like just willy-nilly it, together. Like, you have to pick it apart and look at every single item. And you've got to make it a success, not only for you, the fans, the guests, but the vendors and everybody.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell. Now I can tell you some horror stories, and Adrienne can too. Because I mean, we've been through some stuff, man. Like, no.
Well, what's
My
the
favorite's the vendor that started the vendor's thing and then said they had when you put her
well, I can hear.
hospital.
Oh.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, that's okay. But before, why don't you, Adrienne, why don't you go to you though and tell us kind of one of your worst stories, and then we'll go through something kind of positive, because
And I'll pray that it doesn't involve me.
No, it does. I mean, I feel like I kind of wasn't on the same learning curve as Brandon, because when I started volunteering with Scarefest, everybody was brand new. Like, it was the first year, and It was much, much smaller. And I don't know if I've talked about this very much because it's one of those things that my dad likes to brag about, and I don't like to brag about things. And I don't think it's that big of a deal, but he does. I actually organized my first event when I was 14. There was a band that I really wanted to see, and I couldn't travel out of state to go and see them. So I rented a venue and I booked the band to come into my tiny little town of Midway, Kentucky. I booked a band from Cincinnati, from Boston and Tennessee, and brought them all to Midway and sold tickets, and they sold merch, and everybody made money. And I mean, there was a really good turnout for the show. It was great, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And my dad, had to sign the papers, to rent the venue because I couldn't rent it.
But I mean, that sounds amazing. That's a great story. I'd be proud of you too as a dad.
It was a lot of fun. I really liked it. And I got some very embarrassing photos from that night because I've always had really long hair, and me and all of my friends had really long hair, and we decided to chop off all of our hair and donate it. So my hair was literally up to here and bobbed in the back, and at that event. So I don't really post pictures or talk about it very much. But it was a lot of fun.
I gotta ask, who's the band?
So
Rolling Stones.
No. The band, actually, they had a reunion show not that long ago. Their name was Fizzgig. Fizzgig was the Northern Kentucky one. Secondhand Saturday was the Tennessee band, and I would have to really dig deep in my memory banks to remember the third one that was from New England. I can't think of the name right now. I'm sure I have a flyer or something somewhere. I have to look it up. But yeah, so that was great. But starting with Scarefest, I don't think anybody really knew exactly what to do, and it was a lot different. Now you have a really great tool with the internet and being able to market on social media. And back then it was a lot more legwork and word of mouth and, billboards and the radio. But I don't really think that I have a great answer to that. Now I can say that we've been thrown a ton of curveballs. I think the biggest ones, and Brandon kind of touched on this, is that most people, and this is not I don't say this in a condescending way. I don't say this with any air of superiority, but most people have no idea what we go through.
I agree with that. They have no idea. And and the thing that as someone who has a foot in, well, I was about to say in both worlds, but I really don't have a foot in the other world. I mean, I go to maybe one show. I finally did Horror Hound twice.
Nice.
Just a paying guest.
Yeah.
And one last time when you were there. As someone who does, I don't think they have any idea the goddamn overhead.
No.
Because I get the complaints about the money. I know you get the complaints about the money too, but and this isn't me, but I'm telling you, I know a lot of us behind your back, you have no idea how much it costs. Sorry that the ticket's expensive. Everything's more expensive.
Yeah.
I think that people think a lot of the time, and this is one of the things that has, I think, kind of set Scarefest apart from some of the others. First off is that nobody really understands exactly how much money goes into this thing. And a lot of people make the assumption that promoters in general, and I mean, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for other shows, but that promoters in general are about bottom dollar financials, like they'll milk a turnip if they can.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I've seen promoters that do that. But the thing with Scarefest is that we've always, when it did start making money and we turned it around, all that money goes back into it. And so that's the difference, I think, in what you see with other shows, is that we turn it around and plug it right back in. And actually looking at, a lot of these positions, a lot of things that people do are volunteer.
Yeah.
And I would take the Pepsi challenge with any volunteer group in the nation when it comes to art folks. But like when you get into like the stuff that Adrienne does, that you just, no one else could do what she does, and what Wes does, and all those folks. Like my dad always told me two things. He was like, if you're going to invest in land And if you find somebody you trust, invest in that. And that was probably one of the best things I ever heard. And that's what changed the entire course of the entire thing. But from that speaking, like you have to a business, a con, anything like that is it's like having a child. You've got to take care of it. You've got to make sure that it gets what it needs.
Yeah.
And you have to love it.
Well said. You don't have to like it, you have to love it.
You can be mad as hell at it sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you have to love it.
Uh-huh.
Also, what differentiates it between every other festival? Sexiness of the owners.
I
just touched the screen. I just touched the screen.
I'm just saying between my chiseled chin and receding hairline.
Which chin?
Yeah. They've gotten quite. That has grown also with.
I was gonna say, yeah. Not only is Scarefest grown, but like we're not getting taller, but maybe wider.
Well, whatever. I'll be down 100 pounds by the end of October. Just watch. I've already gotten
the Scarefest
like,
crash
I've already lost.
The only thing that's going to screw me on that this year, and I want to put this out there, like I always lose like 15 pounds the month leading up to Scarefest, but not now that I have DoorDash. That is out the window. I have been emotionally eating way too much. And the fact that I can literally almost any time, day or night, open my phone and put in an order for tacos is just, no. So if
I went down 2 pant sizes since August, and like it'll keep going like that all the way through to November.
Yeah,
and then it'll go back up, just like my credit score.
Down and up. We're on a trend. I had to order new pants, so he lost it. I found it, but at the end of the day, it all evens out, and that's what teamwork is about, I guess.
Before I let the other two ask some questions, I have one kind of comic question for people, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, especially in the last two, and they've only kind of come to the last two. So Adrienne has worked every single one of them, but I've been to every single Scarefest. And I don't know if some of the people who have experienced it the last couple years understand or can really comprehend just how much you have turned it around.
Yeah.
I don't think, because it was when you bought it, you and I met and we talked, and I thought, well, I'm getting fired. That's the first thing you do is move out old and move in new. And you actually gave me a compliment, and I've told this story before. And then I thought that first year, that was at the camp Scarefest the first year.
I didn't know I wasn't there. I mean, I was there as I was a security volunteer.
No. What was the theme of the first year you did?
It was Resurrection, I think.
Was it Resurrection? I don't remember. But I thought, oh my God, I hate it for someone who I started liking and becoming friends with. I was like, this is the worst financial decision this man has ever made. He's an idiot. There's no way I would have done this. He's a dumbass. Have I ever told you this, Brandon?
No, we've had that conversation.
And so I'm telling you this, and I'm saying it again because you made me out to be an idiot, and you were right, and you all did it with sheer willpower.
I don't know if it was sheer willpower, but
how else?
I'll tell you this: okay. So
we're going to be the #1 horror convention in the United States after this year.
Probably in the world.
Probably. And you all have done it. And once again, I don't think, if you've been in the last 2 or 3 years, Adrienne, please back me up on this. I don't think you can, unless you have been to all of them, you have seen, like Chad and James and I,
right?
Just the metamorphosis.
How it's gone from.
Come on, Brandon. Your new name is Kafka.
No, let me say this.
Educated joke.
And nothing like so. Patty and Chuck did a great job with it, but
things went south.
Things went south, but just like with anything else. It has its ups and downs. The problem with a con is not making it successful. The problem is maintaining consistency.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's the biggest thing. And we've had, we've done good at maintaining consistency since we came back after 2019
Mhm.
and the pandemic.
That's
This-
We're 21.
what is it, Adrienne? What are you showing us? If you're
Oh, yeah.
listening, search the YouTube. What are you showing?
Celebrating 10 years of terror, 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, I still have PTSD over that image.
Yeah.
But you get people. What's the best way to say this?
Whichever way you want.
It's
We have
easy.
very few listeners.
It's easy to trust the wrong people, and it's easy. This is kind of going back to what I was talking to Sean about. That like nobody tells you how this works. You are either lucky with the people you get advice from, or you could be insanely unlucky at the same time. And it wasn't until we came off of 2019 that we drew a line in the sand and said no more.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to cut out everything that we thought was even mildly cancerous.
Yep.
And it's a good way to put it.
And it is, because the show didn't change until it became fun for us. That's when it changed. And it became fun for us after it was something, after that change, those changes happened. And it was something that I was proud of. It was something that people were, and it just gained traction from there.
Mhm.
And you can tell the show clear as day. If you see the owner walking the floor, you can watch them and you can tell how the show is going to go. I did not come out of the show office for the first 3 years because I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Now you came out once.
Very seldom did I come out of there. I slept in the show floor.
Can I tell one of the times you were out?
You went.
You may not
no,
remember.
seriously, this is the best. And he went
When
from
Scarlett was
Howard.
born, I came out on Sundays, and I would go out for an hour with Scarlett usually, and that was about it.
Brandon went from Howard Hughes to Tony fucking Montana.
It's funny.
You did have
No,
a
it's-
few
it's-
drinks. You had a few drinks with me, Chad, and another person.
Which year?
It was the first year or two. It was before you
Yeah.
kind of got rid of the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
Yeah,
gave us a
yeah.
compliment later. You actually, you may not remember this, but you actually, and I think you said it to Chad and I can't remember Chad, but quote me.
I think
Like,
I think by year two, Brandon, you were like just a shade away from having Kleenex boxes for shoes.
yeah, that you like that was the
We-
only few minutes of fun you had the whole time.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about. Yeah, that 18 and 19 were
All-
exceptionally difficult.
Our photo ops all fit on this one page for all weekend. Right here.
Can you imagine? And chip coffee. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say anything. Keep going.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though? One page of photo ops.
24 photo ops. That's what we had. 24.
God, we had a photo op company one time that didn't even have lights.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, it's just one of those things. Like, if that's why when I meet people that own other shows and they haven't been doing it very long, like, I just want to tell them like all the shit like that we've seen just in my limited amount of time, so that it doesn't happen to them. Because like some of the stuff that me and Adrienne and Nicole, Wes, and all of us have had to deal with, I would not put on my worst enemy. Not in a million years. And now it's completely different. But I mean, I've never sugarcoated that first few years, man. I've never sugarcoated it, and I've never said anything that wasn't true about it. First 3 years were rough,
Yeah.
Horrible.
and it was absolutely like you sacrifice a lot. Just like anything else, you have to love it, and part of love is sacrifice. But I'm telling you right now, it was up and down. Um, but I don't like to talk about those years so much as I do like what happened when we came back out.
Well, it kind of, I wanted, and if you remember when we started this, I was like, let's start talking a little bit about the negative, and then we'll move on to the positive.
Yeah, yeah.
So the positive thing is that I think that we're going to hit, and I don't mean this, I'm not referring to another show. I just mean you and I have talked about this, and we've talked about this as like horror conventions never do Comic-Con numbers. Son, you about to do Comic-Con numbers.
We had this conversation with the center for many years, and I was like, you can never equate us to them, and still we'll
Well, I
never
meant
be.
Comic-Con in
We'll,
general. I'm not even referring to that one. I meant just general, fairly decent sized city Comic-Cons.
Sure.
You're
it, no, I've always like so. I think Jared, like from what I always understood, and if, if he hears this and I'm wrong, I'll definitely say I'm
He's
wrong.
never going to listen to this, but keep going. I'd be shocked if he did.
I think Jared started out being a vendor at Scarefest.
Mm-hmm. He
And
did.
then he
I
ended up,
recruited him to be a vendor at Scarefest.
Yep.
yeah, and then he ended up doing Comic Con, and it was small when it started,
It was one
and
day
Scarefest
show.
was really big. Yeah, yeah. And then, but that's kind of the hierarchy of things. Like things change consistently, and Jared puts on a great show, and he put
Yeah.
a lot more into it, and it grew, and it was something that we emulated because there's a lot of shows that you can look at and be like, oh, I want to do like that, or I want to be like that. Um, and it not really be good in the aftermath. But Comic Con, Jared, he's always been honest and straightforward, and I've always emulated that show. And we've tried to do things, that kind of fall in line with that. But yeah, I'd always told the center, I was like, most horror cons are hotel shows. So they
Yeah.
just don't push the same numbers as Comic Con. And I was like, it's never going to be that. And that changed dramatically after 21, because I was like,
Yeah.
screw it. I think we can do it. And I watched it grow in attendance, like just by changing the mentality
Yeah.
and the culture
Yep.
of it. People followed suit with that. They can feel it, and it'll
Mhm.
grow. And I think that's what Jared did, and I think that's what we did. We were just a little slower coming into the game.
I don't know that you're slower. It's just it's not that's not you. I think your original statement's true. I think horror conventions of themselves are usually small. They are. They're just that's just true. What you've
You're
done
smaller
What
pool.
you've done is that you all are the exception to the rule and have made something so special, so unique. And so it is it warms my heart that not only do my friends own it, but it warms my heart that it's in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And
Kentucky.
yeah,
It's
and a
not
lot
in
of
New
people
Jersey. It's not Son of Monster Palooza. It's not any of these other huge shows. It's here.
yeah, I mean, when you see a horror con pushing 25,000 plus through the door in 100,000 square foot of convention space, that is very atypical. And
Hmm.
I didn't really realize it until I went out. Like me and Adrian and Wes and all of us, like we we decided in 21, 22 that we were going to stop going by word of mouth and what people were telling us
Hmm.
and go out and look at it. And we
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
every single show on the East Coast almost. And I watched them, every single one, what they did, what they did wrong, what they did that I liked, things that we thought gave fans a crappy experience. And one of the quickest things that we learned, and I mean, me and Adrian, we all sat down, was like when you stop having to worry about, the minutia of stuff that we were having to worry about, and you can focus on just having a good time and having
Yeah.
and making it fun, then you start picking it apart and you start looking at ways to like cut down on people's line experiences. Make sure that people are having a good time. If someone looks lost, then you stop and talk to them. And hand in hand with that, horror fans are some of the best people on earth.
Yeah. It's a great community.
Mhm.
Like my God, last year somebody laid down $6,000 worth of autographs on the floor and left them, and somebody turned it in. And horror cons are not the same as Comic Con.
Mm-mm.
The people there are a lot more supportive of one another, and I went to Comic Cons for years. I still do, but horror people are a lot different,
Yeah.
and they will if there's like a trampling crowd of like the Thing, like in the or the Blob, like coming out of the theater. Like instead of people like trampling other folks, like horror people will stop, pick people up, and drag them out.
Yeah.
And I would take, like I said, the Pepsi challenge with my volunteers. I love the horror fans. Like those guys, they will tell you exactly what's up. They'll tell you when you screw up, and they tell you when you do a good job.
Yep.
They're also drunks. They do drink more. They do drink more. It's just
They know how to have. I'll put it this way: they know how to have fun.
No, you guys, for the most part, almost every year, your VIP party is the party to go to.
Yeah, I'm excited about having it offsite again this year.
I am actually excited about going back to Manchester. It's inconvenient because it's nice having a center, but it's so wonderful because it's just more of a party place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like hotels. Like it's hard for me to get like really engaged in like a VIP party. And if you go to VIP parties, a lot of conventions. Now, this is the one thing that Lexington Comic Con does really well. You know, they really shine on when it comes to stuff like that. But a lot of horror cons and other shows I go to, it's 100 people sitting in a ballroom with somebody hooking up a CD player to a speaker, and it feels like Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah. Our VIP party is going to be awesome this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it usually is. It's I've had a lot of really crazy fun. I'm trying to think of things I can actually talk about that's happened. Actually, I don't really have anything that ever happens to me. I always have stories I hear later, but it's never none of it's rarely true.
I
Chad, you
always get there 3 hours after they start, and then I'm so tired. Usually, like people just look at me and like hand me a drink, and then I sit there and hold it all night.
Chad, you keep covering your nose. What do you smell?
Oh, my the bulldog next to me keeps letting out the nastiest farts.
Okay,
It
good.
do be like that sometimes.
It do be like that. So, Chad, James, either one of you have a question? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm
Right, knows
taking.
the drill. I'm getting all into soccer.
Got it. Soccer. Tell her I will be there.
So, what was that laugh in that old show? Soccer.
Sock it to me.
Sock it to me is what you're talking about. What you're getting mixed in is airplane is striker. Yep.
That's it. That's what I was going
I
with.
think, does somebody have the same text message tone as me? Because I keep hearing the Jawas.
That's me.
I have no idea.
Brandon, we are buddies because that's mine too.
Actually, I don't.
Yeah,
His. All right.
My phone hasn't made a noise for a text tone in 4 years.
Now I have anxiety every time I watch Star Wars and hear a Jawa. I'm just like, oh God, somebody needs something.
All right. Before we move on, Chad, James, did either one of you have a question before we start talking about the lineup in the show?
James, do you?
Well, I figured age before beauty, Chad. I was going to let you go first.
No, go ahead.
God.
No, actually, mine was more about the lineup. So I will.
Let's get it started. Let's talk about the positive things this year, and let's hope. All right, I won't make any jokes that I made before we started recording. That was the only thing was threatened about. Was Chad and I were supposed to be respectful of things that have happened, so I won't make any of those jokes.
I mean, you probably should be respectful about things that happen. I mean, we've been talking about how horror is a community. And not at all like the
James wasn't even here for the briefing, but I know I don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, people say they want you to be entertaining, and then they go, "Don't do that." And I was like, "No. Being nice isn't being entertaining. That's two totally different. Those are not. No.
Well, some people can pull it off, Joe. It's just not you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, there's people there. I've heard tons of story about very nice people that are very entertaining. It's just not how you do it, which is fine.
I don't know how to do that. You're absolutely right.
And we respect your life choices. I mean, we talk about you behind your back and actually in front of you. We're kind of equal opportunity.
Would you ask your damn question about their guests this year so these people can go to bed? Literally, Adrienne has yawned 3 times in the last 20 minutes.
I just assume.
I don't think she's tired. I just think we're boring people.
Well, Brandon was the one talking. Brandon was the one talking.
Oh yeah, you get me going. Like I haven't slept in like 2 days, so I'll talk all night.
We have. It's been a while since you and I've done that, so we should do it again sometime.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. We just need a bottle of bourbon. So, James, question about the lineup.
No, I was looking at the lineup and reviewing everything, and I'm really it's just fascinating to me because one thing that I always like to point out, and I usually point out to other people, is that the mix of guests that you all always have obviously crosses over into other genres as well. Like it's one of the things that I used to often do. There's a website that tracks when people that are in Star Trek are appearing at conventions, and without fail, it's always go to Scarefest, right? I'm able to say, look, Scarefest has all these different people. But I must admit, the one that popped up on my radar where I was like, oh yeah, no, this will be Billy Zane. I'm really just all the Silence of the Hams questions I have. I have so many, so many.
Really,
Working
you
with
had to
Dom
bring up
DeLuise,
Billy Zane.
working with Dom DeLuise, of course I have questions. Dom DeLuise was a national treasure.
There's
So
100 guests.
and
You
a few of them have worked with Dom DeLuise, and I have comments and questions.
know, no, I'll say this, like we had I'd always wanted to do, and I still like it, and we couldn't do it this year. Hopefully it'll happen sometime soon, but I always wanted a Demon Knight reunion
Yeah,
with
me too.
I wanted Sadler, Zane, Kassir,
Hmm.
maybe not Jada Pinkett Smith, but
Yeah,
like
that's not going to happen. I don't think.
yeah, I don't think that would be a possibility. Sadler, I mean, he has a rep. He's been to shows. He hasn't done one in a long time. But
Thomas
yeah, I
Hayden
really want.
Church.
Yeah.
I bet you
He's
could
been
get
to a
Thomas Hayden
couple.
Church.
Um, and then what's his face from Gremlins, who I think unfortunately passed away quite a while
Yeah,
back. But
Dick Miller.
the but that everything about that movie, because like that came out in like the late '90s, I think. And so that was
94.
real big. Like it had a great soundtrack. Tales from the Crypt was at its peak. I thought Billy Zane was phenomenal in it,
Oh my God,
and
yeah.
I've always wanted to do that reunion.
It's his
And
best role.
yeah, he has like I always I kind of laugh a little bit because he when I see him at other shows, his banner seems to be more Titanic themed, and I'm like, I get it. That was probably yeah. Um, I've never been a real big Titanic fan, but yeah, I love the collector.
Yeah,
I,
no, it's his best role. It really
it's his
is.
best role, and I laughed when DiCaprio died.
Did Billy
I
Zane
have
kill
no,
him?
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
no
I'm just,
soul.
I yeah. I was like, I hate movies where it's spoiled. Like I already knew what was going to happen, so I wasn't that interested.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So to follow up with James's question about Billy Zane, I do have a question about the lineup. When you all start doing this, when, Brandon, do you say enough's enough?
He doesn't.
100?
No,
No,
Because
no,
you were talking
no.
about you gotta always try to outdo yourself. How are you going to outdo yourself next year?
the motto stops this year.
Now,
He's
see,
gonna get a new catchphrase. The "if you ain't
Yeah.
growing, you're dying" is out the window.
well, that doesn't mean like I don't want to get this like the show can't grow beyond like where it's at right now. And you can't have too many people in there because it just makes it a crap experience. Like
Mhm.
I would never. My intention is to never oversell the show, and you have to have a comfortable medium between number of celebrities and vendors, or else the celebrities will eat the vendor floor. So you've got to be very careful about all that. So we limited the vendors this year, but now used to we would stick to about 45, maybe I think it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mhm.
And if we went over that, like I was up in arms, like, oh my God, this is gonna be like $30,000 extra expenses and blah blah blah. And it wasn't until it was last year, it was
Yep.
15. We looked at everything and the numbers had kind of grown and we had kind of grown like we were adding a little bit more celebs. And I'm a big fan of Texas Frightmare. And so Texas had 70 guests, I think. And I was like,
Hold my beer.
I kind of, yeah. No, I looked at it. I was like, it makes sense because we were doing photo ops and like I'm one of those guys that like going to shows and being able to get. I love cast reunions, But if you do a big cast reunion, like if we did Phantasm this time back in 19, that would have been 75% of our guest list.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not for everybody. The only way you can do it is you've got to expand to it. And we did 80 some guests last year. We've got, right at about 100 right now. And there's a couple of things to take into consideration with that. One is that I went to a show in New England not too long ago, and this is the same way if I go to some that are local. I could want 10 autographs from that show, but I would be stuck in line all day long, and I would only get 2.
Yep.
The thing about having so many guests and running the lines right, but you have to run the lines right, is that it spreads the fandom around, and people will go around and like maybe Adrienne Barbeau, like, if she was at a con where there's like 40 guests, she would have a line out the door. She's at our con, she makes the same amount of money, but her line is not going to be like out the door. It's going to be consistent all weekend. And as a fan, you can jump around like all weekend. Like come all weekend, there you'll get all the signings you want within reason.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have like a limited amount of guests, it doesn't spread it around a lot. And that's like when I talk to like agents and stuff, everybody's always like, oh God, your guest list is like 90 people long. I'm like, yes, there's a reason for that. And I was like, it's very calculated. But it also, it brings more people in. Like, you cast a wide net. You've got collectors like me that love like just the stories and having all the cast together. It changes the entire dynamic of the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for panels. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. And, last year, especially, if there were concerns that there were too many celebrities by, Friday for a lot of them, but the weekend in totality, I bet I heard 90% of our guests say something along the lines of, this was the most money I've ever made in an event, or something very similar to that, because even though they're thinking, well, I'm not going to do too much because all of these other people are here. Like you all have said, as far as spreading out the fandoms, and you're going to get some people are here for these lineups, and some people are here for these lineups. So it really does. It evens out incredibly well.
And nobody wants to hear about celebrities making more money. But I'll tell you how I take it is that more fans had an opportunity to meet somebody if they wanted to. And that's what I took from it.
Absolutely. And that's the point of it. But how do you mean when you talk about doing the lines right? What do you mean by that? For somebody who doesn't understand the line building, can you talk about that?
I'll tell you right now, Adrienne right there is the best person in the country that you're going to find at running logistics on a line.
Well, explain that to me.
The absolute best.
So it is a very multifaceted approach. So Brandon, thank you. But I could not do it if Brandon did not control the influx of people that were coming into the room. So our line at the show is a monstrosity when you just look at it. When you're pulling up to the building and you see it's wrapped, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never seen,
I take a picture of it every year. Well, the last few.
Exactly. And it's crazy, but when the doors open, it's not like one person steps up to the ticket counter and they get their ticket and they walk in, and the next person, it's not going to take you 4 or 5 hours to get through the line. Right. He's got it down to a science. So essentially what we did last year was I stood in the back hall and Brandon was up in the front, and he would walk back and look at things. But if he couldn't walk back there, he would say, how are the lines? And I would say, we can take more. And then he would speed up the rate at which they checked people in. So that is the biggest part, is managing the flow, because you don't create bottlenecks where no one's moving. There is always, even if you're moving very slowly, there is always the forward movement. So you're not stagnating, you're not standing there sweltering to death.
Like being caught on the interstate, you don't get as mad as long as it's moving. But when you're
Yeah.
just sitting there on the road, yes, you get
Yeah,
really angry.
exactly. It doesn't matter. Like if you are going from point A to point B and it's going to take you 4 hours to get to point B from point A, and you can drive there straight in 10 minutes or sit there for 3 hours and 50 minutes, you're going to be mad as hell than if you just are constantly going forward for 4 hours. You're exactly right. So, that is part of it. But I mean, there's other parts as well, as far as doing the line building that we did with Robert England. And, basically we look at it as like a math problem. And I love math. So if you can, put down, your experience into a numerical sense of moments and, waiting periods and hours of the day, then yeah, you can figure it out. And like Brandon was saying, as far as going to shows, I very much hate feeling squeezed into a space. I will not get into a line where I'm going to be stuck in that line. I won't do it. I don't care who is at the table that I want to see. I'm not getting in that squeezed tight panic attack, hot flash inducing nightmare.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we tape out the lines on the floor, like we tape them wide enough that you can get a wheelchair or a scooter or I've seen people pushing like prams, like the baby strollers, through there with baby dolls and stuff. We try to keep it spaced out enough to where you don't ever feel like you are just really constricted in the space that you're in, which I think just mentally helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, and again, Brandon kind of touched on this too. If you have a really wide variety, if you're walking through and you see all of these stars and you're like, well, that line looks really short. And I heard that a lot. And I know, Brandon's eyes kind of bugged about like, making money. But the thing is with the guests and bringing them in, one of the things that helps us, and we talk about this, I talk about this on lives, I talk about this with our volunteers, you need the celebrities to sell their merch that they're bringing with them. You need them to make money because you need them to, it goes back to the customer service of like, if one person has a bad experience, they're going to tell 10 people, but if they have a good experience, they might tell 1 or 2. But looping this back to what Brandon said in the beginning of this about it being a small world, you want everyone to have a really great experience because you want them to come back. That goes for our vendors, that goes for our guests, our speakers, everyone that comes in. If you put everyone on a level playing field, and you really are invested in their experience, it will pay you back more than any dollar amount ever could. And I'm not saying that because it sounds cool to say. When we sit down and we put this show together, me, Brandon, Wes, Nicole, all of the staff, when we sit down and we do this, we go into it with, I need everybody's viewpoints. Our vendor director, she should argue with me and Brandon on behalf of the vendors. If we want to do something and it's going to in any way, I'm going to say negatively impact the vendors, like if it's going to take something away or if it's not, she's there to advocate for them. Right. And we want everybody to do that. We need you to argue with us and tell us like, this is why we need to keep doing it this way, or this is why this has to change. You don't want to live in an echo chamber. I am certain that will stunt an event faster than anything. If you are not constantly looking for ways that you can, even if it's not to your personal benefit, there's been a couple times where I'll suggest something or, to Brandon and he's like, oh, super old school horror. Like that's his bag. That's what he loves. And trying to venture into the realm of anything made past 1990 and he started clutching the pearls.
I understand though.
You know, and I get it because the foundation of our show is absolutely, you know, that's where we're based. But there's been a couple times where he'll say something and I'm like, there's no way that's going to go over as well as you think it is. And I will eat my hat every time. And I feel like we're pretty good about being able to say, hey, I was wrong. You're right. I'm sorry about that. But also, I'm always going to be at odds. Anytime he says anything about booking or changing something, even if I completely agree with him, I will argue with him. Devil's advocate, I will be at odds and I will be like, why? We need to talk this through. Why is that what you want to do? Because it could be a dumb idea or it could be a stroke of genius, but we got to figure out how you got to this point. So
I appreciate you all walking through this. This is different than how I thought our conversation would go because I think it's fascinating, especially for people who don't know how any of this works.
No, I love it. Yeah,
The
because
behind the scenes, it's just so. Sorry, Chad. Go ahead.
No, I said I love this just because, you know, just coming from somebody who I've come from two aspects of it. I come from somebody who comes to enjoy it, but also somebody who volunteers and honestly sorely misses volunteering and wishes
voluntold more like
voluntold, yeah. And misses every year. Every year he thinks he's coming back, and every year something stops him from coming back.
But you will be there doing Bonehead Weekly Live Saturday at 6 p.m.
That's right.
Plug.
But you plug know, and that's where he's going to get us the guest, Joe Dante. That's right. Joe Dante will be on Bonehead Weekly Live Saturday at 6 p.m. Tune in, come by, see the show. You've heard it here first. None of that.
Swing for the fences. But actually, that's something I do want to say, and I say this as credit to you all, and credit to Scarefest as a concept in many ways, because the thing that I really appreciate about Scarefest when it comes to guests is that Scarefest has always done a relatively good job of having guests for everybody. I mean, throughout its history, and as I have all these books behind me, I'm a book nerd, and
you're a multifaceted.
I am.
Do not silo yourself or put.
There's no part of me that's not a nerd. But no, and so I appreciated so many. I was actually looking at the books and stuff that I have autographed on my shelf. I have a shelf of just autographed books, and the amount of them that came from Scarefest are notable. And so thinking about, I just wanted to give that compliment that obviously Clive Barker, but just historically, and the other thing I do want to say, if you're listening to this and you've never been to Scarefest and you have a family, and I say this sincerely, do yourself a favor.
Have a family, tune out now.
No, if you do have a family, if you don't have a family, kidnap someone else's. It fits with the thing. But the Scarefest has always done a great job. As Joe loves to point out, there's a photo of him with my daughter. It's not that photo that'll get you in prison, Joe. You can stop looking at me that way. But the photo of you and, why am I forgetting the name of the huge creature?
Critter.
The critter. And literally because my daughter thought it was a kitten. And so
hold on. All y'all are wrong. It's a crite.
Yes, it's we're wrong, and you're right, Chad. If that makes you feel
Chad.
better.
I just want everybody in this room, everybody on this call, to be ashamed.
Actually, it's a Karen. Her name is Karen.
But its species is a crite, Adrian.
It's a Karen.
If it's a Karen, her
Adrian,
species.
Hat off. I'm sorry, don't hurt me.
God, speaking of which, though, one reunion I've always wanted to do is Critters. I want the guy that
Brandon,
Charlie.
I would kiss you all over your naughty parts.
And get
Terrence Mann.
Garrett.
I've been trying to chase down Terrence Mann for 3 years.
How can you not get him? What's he doing?
Oh my God, you can't get Ugg?
He doesn't do shows. Like, getting in contact with him, like he does theater and stage production stuff now. But then, like Bradley Brown, like he has a rep. He does shows. He hasn't done one in a long time. Charlie is I don't know where the hell he's at, but he's out there.
I know you can get Mick. You could get the directors. You could get Mick Garris from who directed.
I've held out until like I can get when I know that I can get Lynn Shay and I can get all those people because I don't want to do. I hate doing
He's been
half-ass
trying.
reunions.
Hold
He's been
on.
trying.
If
We
if I'm
can't
gonna do
get
critters,
we can't
I
get
will go
Emmett
to-
Walsh anymore.
well, yeah, but within reason, and not having a seance, like I want to get everyone that's still living that I can get. I mean, look, like that's what I like about like it's so like what we did with the final girls like last year, and
Yeah.
like what we're doing with like the Jasons, everybody this year, like just getting all these people together in one room is really what I'm trying to do. And so if I can't get Lynn Shay, which I knew I couldn't do this year, then I just abandoned the whole thing. And I'm like, we'll try it next year.
Yeah.
Well, at least now we know who's coming next year.
Well, I mean, I would.
You're gonna
if anybody's
try.
listening, I'll take Lynn Shay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's some people like, and I'll tell you, when we're talking about inside scoops on things, let me tell you what can be extraordinarily frustrating from behind the scenes. When you are putting everything, and I will tell you, any person, and I'm not, we're close enough now, I'm still not going to say it. There is someone coming to Scarefest this year that if it was not for his, all out persistence and chasing this man across the country, if it was not for Brandon, it wouldn't have happened. Now, of course, none of this would happen without Brandon, but just when you talk about going above and beyond and going the extra mile, and some of it may have been a little bit self-serving. But
Was it? Who was the hardest one? Who was it?
Clive.
Oh no! He had his swing. He had told me what he was going to do. Not Clive, but Brandon. He told me what he was going to do. He told me yes.
Well, we've been working on. We had Clive booked for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We had him booked, and then COVID, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think so. One of the most frustrating things is when you are doing everything in your power to make something happen and it doesn't happen, and then you get to listen to people who were not even slightly emotionally invested in the process of trying to make it happen bitch at you on the internet for not getting people. And it's like, if you had any idea how hard we tried to make this happen, like, you wouldn't say that. But going back to community and horror community and the everybody being wonderful, it's not something we deal with a lot.
Yeah,
but
thankfully.
there are some people that are very squeaky wheels, and they will say, well, you should get this person. Like, you're just going to walk to the fridge and get a Coca-Cola. You could just bring this person. Like, well, yeah, if I didn't have to like mortgage my 6 generations of my future family to make that happen, I'd love to do it. But yeah, there's some parts that are really frustrating. That can be one of them. Guest booking can be one of the. We had a guest, I'm not going to say who it is, but two years ago, we were trying to get this guest. I know it was last year. I think it was. It was last year. We were trying. We got them. The contract was signed. We were given the contract. We made the announcement graphic. We are getting ready to go live. We had had the contract for 2 days, but we wait for Scarefest TV before we announce. And I get a call. They're canceling. And thank God we hadn't announced them yet.
Yeah, I mean, they were literally booked and canceled
before
within
they were
48 hours.
Yeah.
And you can't tell us who either, can you? Because I actually don't think I know who it is.
I told you who it was.
Oh, did you?
If you did, I forgot.
I don't care. Do you care, Brandon? I mean, I don't think
No,
there's.
I don't. It doesn't matter.
Alan Tudyk.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he canceled and booked it that quick in the same time.
Yeah, and what it wasn't anything nefarious. That's not why I didn't want to say it, but like we had booked him, and then we got a call saying that he has a charitable organization that builds schools in impoverished areas of other countries, and he was going to visit one of these sites for a week. and it was right. Scarefest was right in the middle of it. It wasn't like you could hold off a day or come back a day earlier. He was going like Wednesday to Wednesday to Africa or something. And so
philanthropy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was so upset, but at the same time, like, thank God for what he's doing. And I'm so proud that he's doing that. But I really just got my hopes up.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
did he take the
Could you
time
imagine,
to think about your needs?
No.
Yeah, I got so excited about making that graphic because I did the whole Tucker and Dale thing.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
That was on the docket. Like I called Jared up and was like, "Hey, look, is this okay?" Because like
Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
booked him and canceled, and like
Yeah.
I think it's always good. Like if I'm going to cross over or anything like that, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
always talk to Jared. And I got so giddy making that graphic. But could you in the same breath, like could you imagine, like what would have happened? Maybe not with our fans, like the people that know us. But you announce a guest like that and then you cancel. And the first thing that people jump to, and shows I've seen do it,
Yeah.
they'll announce people and not
Grab.
and shouldn't. But and it gives us all a bad rep. It's like cancellations.
Yeah.
I've seen shows do cancellations and it be because they couldn't pay for the travel.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
By the
all
way,
over the place.
please tell me the graphic had Dylan Tucker versus Evil, and then right next to it, King Candy.
No, I didn't do.
Damn
that.
it!
No.
But I do. I'm
No.
real quick on the end of that. There's two things about that. One, when you are getting A-list celebrities, and this is something that people do need to remember, they're incredibly busy.
Sure.
And when they get work in a movie,
They have to
they're going
go.
to do the movie and the work.
Yeah. And that's, that is a huge thing. We got so spoiled. I say we, it was mostly me getting super spoiled last year. That even though I'm thinking, well, yeah, we have over 80 guests, but my job was relatively simple last year. Nobody was working.
Working
I was
actor strike. Yeah, SAG.
Flights,
Yeah.
travel, booked out so early, and I was like, oh man,
Wait.
I'm so good at my job now that these things are easy, and I really got knocked out this
Yep.
year.
But
Yeah.
funny enough, like when we were booking last year, I was like, I think somebody looked at me like, we've got like we're gonna hit like 80.
Yeah, and Brandon's like,
85,
no,
I
we're
think.
gonna have at least 5
And I'm
canceled.
like, yeah, people cancel. And we didn't have like, I don't think we had one cancellation. Maybe one. I can't remember
Wouldn't
right off
budge.
who it was.
Well, I was
And
there
like-
all 3 days, and there are people I still never got to meet that I wanted to meet just as a fan because they didn't do a panel,
Yeah.
which means, and by the way, I always want more panels. And the thing is we didn't get to do it, so I never got to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
I never got the time.
Last year, and I have to say, because I would think of everybody at the show, even more so than Brandon, I should be, if anybody is going to meet every guest, it should be me, because I talk to either them or their reps all year. I am normally the one that meets them to give them their credentials and their itineraries and things like that. That's normally me. There were at least a dozen people that we had last year that I never spoke to one time. And then I really wanted to meet Alexandra Breckenridge.
Yeah.
Like big time. I never even had an opportunity to say hello to her.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I didn't get to meet Fiona Dourif, and I also did not get to meet, and I had a
she is
huge crush.
amazing.
Well, I know. I heard from all the people who would come up and go, "Did you?" And I was like, "No, I've been down here on the second floor." And the other one was Melinda Clark, who I'd had a crush on since Return of the Living Dead Part 3, and because somebody didn't schedule a panel, I'm looking at Brandon, because I didn't get to. I just never got.
Well, we did schedule Jay Trevor, which I love that dude. By
Oh
the way.
yeah.
But they hadn't been in a room together since they filmed.
Yeah.
And
Like,
he got added on like at the last minute. But see, we kind of like the panels. I always go like it's easy to like we could just say we're going to do a panel for everybody, but like the thing that we've kind of gotten to is that it takes people off the floor, and a lot of people we book have like they're so entwined with everything.
I
Mhm.
It's like Kane doing like 3 different panels. I think it's better suited. I think what we've done with panels and what you've done with panels
yeah.
has been phenomenal. And the thing I never want to have happen is I don't want it to get watered down by having, a lot of panels like
No.
punched in there.
So this is, and we didn't get to have a panel meeting this year. No, I agree with most of what you say for the most part. I always want more just because the fans love it. But at the same time, last year's panels went so well. And the only problem with this is just my perspective from when you get too many, then it's a little like, for example, do you remember that year, and this is before you bought it, with Robert and everybody from Nightmare on Elm Street? If you're doing a panel, it was just too many people on the one damn panel because so many of those guests did not get questions, and we were late starting. And this is the year before you bought. This is the first, or is this the first year you bought,
He
Brandon?
had it. He brought Robert the first
Was
year.
it the first
Yeah.
year you bought? I couldn't remember. Well, that panel, because what happens when you put Robert with everybody else from all those Nightmare on Elm Street folks?
Mm-hmm.
You know who talked? Robert, who's an iconoclast who just talks. If you know him outside of it, he's just a
Yeah.
talker. And Mick Strawn.
Mm-hmm.
Mick Strawn made his way through. That's where I met Mick. That's
Yeah.
how we became friends. That's who ended up going back and forth through a lot of it. But I love it. So, for example, the director panel this year, when people ask me, "Oh, who you were excited about seeing?" Because I know you guys get that question all the time, and my answer is always, "Do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want a really good, quick answer?" Because the truth is, most of the people I'm excited to see are not necessarily the people everybody else is excited to see. I'm
Yeah.
like Brandon. He texted me before he dropped the Joe Dante thing, and I won't say what he said, but don't worry, I think we're good. And I can't wait to do that director panel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a living dream of mine.
Yeah, as soon as Joe
Yeah,
Dante got dropped on social media, I texted Joe.
And
So I
not
was
just
like,
because of him either. I have never got the chance to meet, oh my God, my mind blank Fright
Tom
Night.
Holland.
Tom Holland, when we had Fright Night the first time, he came on the phone, and actually we ended up talking
Yeah.
and got along on the phone because I knew who Forey Ackerman was and a couple other things. And I get it. I mean, it's obscure knowledge, but I can't wait for that. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and from
Or
from
I'll
my
somehow
standpoint,
screw it up.
from my standpoint, not to interrupt real quick, but I'm going to suck up a little bit. So Adrienne and Brandon made one of my lifelong dreams come true a couple of years ago, and I got to actually
Oh yeah.
physically talk to Lloyd Kaufman.
Uh-huh.
You guys made all of our. That was the best bonehead gift you have ever given us.
And it
Well,
never.
By the way, he
Yeah,
loved us.
I definitely, I'd love to have him back sometime.
Well,
he was,
you know-
he was a hoot.
And I'll tell you all this, like I've tried to get him all year. And I don't know if his people are just busy or what, or maybe I've offended somebody, but I haven't been able to get through to get anybody to answer my emails to have him back. I know he's been busy.
Yeah, he hasn't done that many. He hasn't done that many pictures. He did our year. It seemed like he was all over the place because he was doing Shakespeare shit.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
Shakespeare
when he's not promoting, like he doesn't go out as often.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of times, I guess, he's working and
He's shooting a movie right now. He was shooting a movie.
well, and that's probably what it is. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely down to have Uncle Lloyd back because he's wonderful.
That was literally one of the best experiences of my life. I got to talk to him, and he saw like how big of a huge fan I was, and he gave me his card and said, "Whenever you're up in New York, come by here. I will give you a tour personally."
Aww.
And then he said,
You know
also,
that, Adrian?
yeah,
Oh.
no. And then he asked us to come premiere his movie at the Lex, and it was just amazing.
Well,
And
He
then-
offered me. He offered to let me sleep on his couch.
Yeah.
well,
It's
I
awesome.
I'm not in
Look
the,
at Brandon trying to one up us. He
We-
told
yeah,
me
yeah,
he'd
yeah.
blow me.
Yeah, F you, Chad. One up.
Yeah, Chad.
Dang.
He promised me oral favors.
Well,
He tickled my butthole a little bit. No, he didn't.
He was so intoxicated and on other
Yeah,
things.
no, he
By
was-
the time
he
we
was just-
premiered Shakespeare shit list, he could barely stand up when we were doing the intro. And it was so nice of him to add. He was like, "Oh, you guys have got to be the ones who do blah blah." I was like, "So thank you," but he was.
But
We were all having a good time.
yeah, and
You know,
so
still-
so that being said, that was a childhood staple of mine. And then when I found out not only was Joe Dante going to be there, who is an icon but also the other
That
icon.
he's going to be on Bonehead Weekly Live Saturday at 6 p.m.
But the 8 o'clock. You said 6.
It's 6, Chad. It's 6.
Oh, it's 6? I thought it was 8.
No, 8 is
the drag show's at 8.
No, it's not. The drag show's at 9 on Saturday.
It's Talk Scary to Me at the date.
Jesus Christ.
How is it that I know the schedule better than you all?
I'm just saying, I worked really hard on a schedule document to put online. It doesn't do
Let's-
any good.
let's-
to make
let's see how
friends.
bad I can
Dan's the
irritate
only one's
Brandon
got it
today.
screwed up. All right.
Minimum.
It's like last
But
year.
no.
It's like last year when I changed the times of the show 10 times by accident. So I kept putting the wrong.
I
Listen,
remember that.
I kept putting the wrong times on there.
when people ask us the most obvious dumb questions, like you would think that we would know. Last year, every time someone asked me what our floor hours, because 2 years ago, we were sitting down at a meeting at a board table, like a big meeting table. We all have our laptops and our notebooks, and somebody said the wrong time, and that stuck in my mind, and it's still there. So Brandon kept, like, I had to go back and I'm like, Brandon, this is wrong. This isn't right. Wait, is it wrong? Is this what's right? It was the worst experience last year with the hours of operations. Oh my God. It's a wonder that
I'm so glad I was right.
My answer last year was like, I had like one of my VIP buddies like came up to me. He was like, "Hey, what time's it close tonight?" And like right before that, I'd had a vendor buddy of mine ask me the same thing. And my stock answer was like, "How the F would I know?"
yeah.
and then I just kept walking, which I mean, they knew I was joking.
We put them on
But,
the
like,
back of the badges last year.
That is so handy, by the way. I used mine a bunch of times because I forget.
They're literally right there. 9 p.m.
And they're printed big enough to read.
Yeah, exactly. And Brandon, do you want to talk to him about size matters?
Oh God, no. So
I'm not making any comments.
I just ordered something. I just ordered something too small.
Oh, you did?
Like,
you did it again.
Yeah, but not badges. So nobody freak out.
A couple years ago, we were having a meeting and Brandon had ordered, I don't have it right here, it's in the other room, but he had ordered our badges for the year. It might have been the first one, actually. And he got them, they were like this big, like credit card size, probably, maybe a little bit bigger,
That first year, first year.
This was like what the badges looked like. And so after that, we were looking at badges or something, and he just absolutely put his foot down. He's like, listen, you're not going to hear me say this very often, but in this case, with badges, size matters. We're never going back to the smaller badges ever again. And it is not very common when we're going through stuff that I ever get to pull a Brandon phrase that I agree with out of the lexicon, unless I'm using it as an example of what not to do. So this year he was looking at badges and he said, well, what do you think about scaling the badges down a little bit? And I said, I've been waiting for this for a year.
Just the vendor badges.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. So I was like, actually, Brandon, do you remember that time that you said size matters? We can't go any smaller on the badges. And he's like, well, I just meant the vendor ones, but you're right. I'm like, I'm not right. You're right. I'm quoting you.
I will never forget opening up the first year when those things got here. I opened them up and I was like, oh my God. And then the next year was even worse because I was like, okay, I'm not making that mistake again. And I ordered the next size up and they came in and I swear to God, you couldn't even tell a difference in them. I was like, that's how I know how naive I am to the terms of size, where a half an inch may as well be like 2 foot.
Well, really quick, Chad, you didn't get to ask your question.
I was just going to finish my point of, and by the way, I looked online. I was totally right. Bonehead Weekly, 6 p.m. I don't know why all of y'all were arguing with me.
It was 6. I said
we all
6.
we all said 6.
I think
here we go.
That didn't happen.
Here it is.
Oh, I have that one.
Yeah, I do too.
So here's that one. Here's last year's.
Size does matter.
But no.
And the convention schedule is on the back. We used to stay open until 9 o'clock on Saturday. That's what, and then we closed at 4 on Sunday. But that's what we were going back and forth about was, are we closing at 9 o'clock? Are we closing at 8? Somebody at 7. It was just
I'd I changed that website. It must have been 10 times.
Yeah, I'm going. These are all my old bad.
I have all mine over here, but
Yeah,
Chet,
mine are in my workout room up the stairs. No, I was just going to say the other than Charles, Joe Dante, Charles Band, man.
Oh
That-
yeah,
guys, it's like I've been waiting for Charles Band.
dude. I met him in Texas, and I was like, oh my God, I've wanted Charles there for years.
Same here.
And he goes to Texas every year, and like I'm not above the notion of bringing him out every year because like his booth setup is so this is his first time coming, so he may
Right.
not bring the full booth setup, but if he has a good year, which I know that he will, and we invite him back like Texas does every year. I mean, if he brings the full setup, like it's impressive, and like I'm holding out. I swear to God, I'm holding out on the one chance that I get Jack Death from Trancers. That's all I want. But the guy Tim Thomerson will not fly. He only drives, and he lives on the West Coast. And so, like, I would do anything to get Tim Thomerson and Charles Band in the same room.
I will drive him out.
I was getting ready to say I would
he comes
do
out
it.
occasionally. He doesn't do a whole lot of shows, and like I know a guy that knows him, and so I'm trying to figure out like what angle I can get because like I mean that dude is awesome, and Trancers, no matter what you say, is a good movie.
I love Trancers.
I
do.
like the first one.
I like
And
them
you're
all.
not a true Trancers.
Yeah,
fan.
I like
That's
them all.
absolutely positively
Brandon,
fucking
but
accurate.
Joe, I will not let you sit there, Joe, and besmirch somebody that gave us 3-hour interview one time who wrote some of those later Trancers. So you shut your whorish
But
mouth.
Brandon, I have to admit, if I got a chance to talk with Charles Band, you know what I'd have to ask him about? Shrunken
What?
Heads.
Oh
Heads.
yeah.
What? Not Oblivion?
Oblivion would be my second one, James.
I was
I
gonna
love
say
Shrunken.
Doll Man versus Demonic Toys. Dude, anything with Tim Thomerson in it to me is just solid gold.
We have been going.
One second, Joe. I know we've got to wrap up. I know where you go, but I started mentioning this earlier. I wanted to drive this home. I mentioned bringing your family. I wanted to give special credit. You all do Sunday as Kids Day, and
which my daughters have already asked if they can go to.
Well, I wanted to point that out because last year, I believe it was last year, but one of the things that you all had was effectively a Scream Queen type contest for kids, a screaming contest for kids. I was looking at the schedule this year, and I just appreciate that one of the things you have on Kids Day is the best evil laugh competition.
Yeah.
And as somebody that loves Vincent Price and has that laugh burned into my memory, I just appreciate that Scarefest, as an educator, I greatly appreciate that Scarefest is taking the time to educate future generations about the need for evil laughs. But so just if you are somebody that hasn't attended the show before and you're like, can I bring my kids? The answer is absolutely yes. Sunday has so many different activities for kids, so many different things, and you'll get photos like I have. Actually, I know Chris Sarandon is going to be there this year, and the other photo that I have is my wife and daughter with Chris Sarandon when my daughter was having to be held, and she loved still Nightmare Before Christmas and everything else. So it's one of our favorite family photos. So I want to just put in a plug too for Scarefest on Sunday for Kids Day. They're not, paying me to say this or anything. Bring your kids. It's a lot of fun, and you'll have memories the rest of your life because of bringing it. And that's another reason I love Scarefest.
And also, Billy Zane is the motherfucking Phantom, kids.
Silence of the Hams. I'm going back to Silence of the Hams. He plays Agent Joe D. Foster, Chad. The jokes write themselves.
This is so funny because
I need to actually. I'm getting ready to redo like some of the October marketing platforms. I need to do Silence of the Hams. I don't like it wasn't in his press packet.
Well, Joe Dante's in that as well, right? Because it's got
so is John Carpenter.
Yeah, John Carpenter's in
John
it.
John Carpenter and Joe Dante are in the same scene together.
Yeah, because who did it? Who did it? Who stabbed you? It was the Gimp, and then he limps away.
I'm gonna have to watch that again. I've not seen that in a very long time.
It's not a great movie.
Joe is completely wrong. It is the greatest thing. They should tape over every copy of Citizen Kane with that film. That's a classic.
I watched that on satellite, And like, yeah, that was classic.
I have
But
I have a VHS copy that I had to dub to DVD because it's never officially been released on DVD in the States.
I can't imagine why. All three of you want a copy.
Don't you besmirch anything with Dom DeLuise, sir.
As
I,
we've mentioned before, Joe
that
doesn't like
Cannonball Run
anything
too.
fun.
now, I would say Joe and his copy of The Brain That Wouldn't Die.
So, moving right along. Is there anything before we roll out? Because I have kept you on here an hour and a half. Is there anything on here you want to promote before we go, or anything you want to talk about that we didn't mention? I mean, we could be here for 3 days talking about the guests.
Scarefestweekend.com for all of our events, film festival, speakers, panels, guests.
And
Tattoo
Bonehead
Expo.
Live with Joe Dante, Saturday, 6 p.m.
Oh, and we're working on props for the reunion ones. We've procured all the chainsaws for each of the corresponding leather faces.
Don't give me
Seriously?
credit on that. That's Brandon's horror geek coming out and showing up for you all.
That's
Yes.
cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, you all also have karaoke for the karaoke loving public.
We've
And a quad barrel shotgun, and we've got some cars that are coming that we haven't announced yet.
Yeah, we've got we've got some cars that are going to be there. I mean, just events like, I mean, I love, talking about this kind of stuff, but also we haven't scratched the surface of what the weekend holds. And it was kind of a nice reprieve, not like thinking about and all of that. But there's a ton of special events. Quite a few things are sold out. But most importantly, if you're listening to this, if you are on the fence, weekend passes are already sold out. Saturday passes will sell out, and likely we will not be able to sell tickets at the door due to fire marshal capacity in the building. So if you're on the fence and you want to go, grab a Saturday pass. If not, we've got great things happening on Friday and Sunday that you can come check out. Kids Day being a great thing to see. So
and this is where, sorry, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say also, just if you're on a budget, you can't buy a ton of autographs and stuff, still come, because as they've alluded to, the great thing about this is it really is a community. And I do love the fact that I can walk the floor and see, you're going to see costumes, you're going to see amazing cosplay, you're going to see so many different things. And then you're also going to just see stuff you're not going to see anywhere else. And it's all Scarefest. And so yeah, I just want to, put in a plug. I think it's, William Shatner once made a comment that the reason you do conventions is to see other fans. And the more I go to conventions, the more I actually think he's right.
Yeah.
I can appreciate walking the floor and seeing a really detailed, the Western Kentucky Ghostbusters and all the stuff that they do. And you see all the impact that this horror community has on our communities.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to give a shout out for that too. I'll shut up now, Joe. I know you're trying to wrap us up.
No, I was just going to talk about that. We're going to give away 8 weekend passes courtesy of Scarefest weekend through Bonehead Weekly. I just said it because it's not true, and I'm just throwing those things out there. And don't forget, the most important thing you should do all weekend, and it's free. I was going to say Bonehead Weekly live at 6 p.m., but that's not it. Is actually, I'd say this all the time. I know Adrienne's probably seen it. I always tell people, come to a panel.
Oh,
it's free, and it's packed, and we have an effing blast.
Well, the panels aren't free. You have to pay for admission, then go to a panel.
Once you're in the door, asshole, it is free. And if you can get a seat, it's enjoyable. Go ahead.
We've got some graphics floating around, especially if you're on Facebook and you join the Scarefest Weekend fans group. Barb has made an awesome graphic, and it's basically like Scarefest on a budget. I did a post about things that you can do at Scarefest that don't cost anything, and you all have definitely named a couple of really great ones. The cosplayers and the other fans, that is an experience in and of itself. But we also have the Scarefest trading card game. We've got people there that have made all sorts of friendship bracelets, keychains, magnets, little totem things of, there's trading that's going on that just really enforces that community aspect of like, we're even though we're just here together this one weekend, like, so the panels, the film fest, the speakers that are coming in, all of these things are free once you buy your ticket and you get in, checking out the vendors. There's going to be indie filmmakers that are there. There is a part of a movie being filmed at Scarefest this year. Scarefest weekend is going to be the convention by name in this film when it comes out.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of like really cool, little Easter egg things that, all sorts of stuff that we can't talk about everything on any platform. There's just, even putting the information on the website, it's so easy to miss things. So, definitely try to stay as tuned in as you can to our posts. I do a lot of live videos as we get closer, just talking about the logistics of the show, things you can expect to see, answering questions. So the more information that people come into the show with, the more relaxed they're going to be, the better time they're going to have, the energy, it passes the vibe check.
And with that, thank you all so much. Thank you for the opportunities over the years. And thank you for always actually being very supportive of not only me, but the other two a-holes too.
Well, you find people you can trust and you invest in them.
That's right. And thank
And
you.
when you find them, let me know. And
Oh, yeah,
until
I'm just
such
saying.
time, we will do.
Yeah, I'm just saying, nobody here counts. Yeah.
That'll
Yeah, I
That'll
was
do,
gonna say.
Peg. That'll do.
It's the same
Keep-
thing my
keep-
wife said on our wedding day. You'll do for now.
All right, I'm going to stop recording, and then I got a couple questions for you. Thank you all for being on the show.